Today we just want to talk a bit about how CPQ is actually being used in a financial environment, Absa Group. And it's very unconventional if you think about it, because a bank doesn't necessarily quote the same way a car sales company would, or the normal way you think reps and quoting. So CPQ actually stands for Configure Price Quote. It's an add-on module to Salesforce, okay? So it allows you to control how you price, how you configure your product structures, and then as well as how you report on the quoting and the success rate of quotes. So I'm going to hand over now to my colleague to just talk to you a bit about how Salesforce is currently being used in Absa, and then I'll get into some more detail.
Perfect. Thanks, Leandi, and thank you for that introduction. My name is Mosetsana Songo, and as Leandi already mentioned, I am from the Absa Group. Specifically, I sit in the relationship banking space, where I look after pricing. And as you can imagine, within the relationship banking space, there's a lot of personalization that is required, because you are dealing with a one-on-one type of relationship with the client. So just before I get into how CPQ helped us solution for some of the pricing capabilities that were required in our space, I'll just start by speaking a little bit about the fact that Absa Relationship Banking had been on a journey to bring Salesforce into the organization for some time. And I think the audience here today they're no strangers to the benefit that Salesforce delivers to the organization. But for us specifically, it brought in efficiencies in terms of the customer relationship management processes, from onboarding all the way through to the everyday client relationship management aspects. It brought in that single client view, which is very important, as I mentioned, in the relationship banking context, where you often look at both the client's business banking as well as personal banking profiles. It really helped us in bringing that client centricity mantra that we strive to live by as an organization. And not to mention that collaboration between colleagues was made a lot easier when we are either dealing with queries or actions that span across many different business units. So that's the value we're able to derive from Salesforce. And once we got to a point where the program was fully embedded and adopted by our client-facing colleagues, we were then ready to move on to the next phase of what Salesforce is meant to deliver for us. And that's where CPQ came in, where we were looking to not only make Salesforce a one-stop shop for all client-related activity, but also pricing functions. So within our organization or within our business unit, what we had is we've got multiple systems where pricing would take place. So in order for us to move away from that swivel chair action that our front-facing colleagues had to live with, we then brought in the team, EXA, who helped us deliver the CPQ functionality. And because Salesforce was a program that was already adopted and being utilized, there was a lot of familiarity with our frontline colleagues. It was quite simple for us to stitch that in and plug it into what is already in existence in order to deliver that full end-to-end view that we require, which is all the more important in the relationship banking context. So that's where EXA came in, and that's where the story of how we were able to deliver CPQ begins. So, Leandi, I think you can take it from here. Thanks.
So very often when people come to us to do a CPQ implementation, we either find one of two things. The customer has a very straight and narrow-minded idea of, this is what I want, this is what you need to build. But what we very often do find is throughout our discovery and blueprinting phases, we actually discover that there's potential to maybe price a product differently, to approach a sale in a different way. And with CPQ, that becomes possible. So if I take it home a bit with our APSA use case, very often our clients say to us, I need the interface to do this, I need speed, I need it to be accurate, I need it to be quick. So a lot is possible on Salesforce. If you're an existing customer, you know that we can do customizations, we can use Lightning components to make it look as pretty and as sexy as you'd like it to be, okay? But what we focused on with APSA was to stay true to CPQ and the core of it without customizations. So quite interestingly enough, when I spoke to Mark Hoban and his team as well about the CPQ instance at APSA, the amount of customization we did to make this happen was created 6 fields. That's it. Okay, so in a Salesforce ecosystem, that's not a lot, which means every single piece of functionality in CPQ is leveraging off of the power of CPQ. We used advanced bundle configurations to set up the product structures within APSA. That was actually quite a interesting milestone to overcome, because in CPQ's world, a product to me is almost like an asset, but a product in APSA's world is like a check or a savings account. So that was quite interesting to navigate. So that is what we did at APSA. I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about our approach that we followed. Being an agile company as well, we focused on consulting with the client, and this started 2 years ago. This wasn't an overnight implementation that we did. So 2 years ago already, we were tasked with proving that this can work, that CPQ is a fit at APSA. So we went and we sat with our team and we said, okay, we're not going to waste time with unnecessary meetings or any of the other procedures and requirements. We're literally just going to sit and build this thing, okay? We sat with some of the brilliant minds at APSA, some of the architects there. We were given a brief scope, just a small chunk of it, which they thought were the core pieces, no integrations just yet. And we built it out, and then we sat with the architecture review, where they asked questions, vetted, checked our build to see if they're comfortable with it. We actually then got the go-ahead. And again, we did not do any build. So when we got the go-ahead at the beginning of this year, we started off by doing screen markups. So we went onto Figma, we marked out what we envisioned the system looked like. And at this point, I want to mention that it was so critical to work with the product owners who are not only strong, but also knowledgeable in their field. So when we showed Eurisha and Victor and the rest of the team a screen, they were able to, with just the markup, tell us this is not what we're aiming for, let's try and do this. And this saved a lot of time because we didn't actually just build, hand over, and run away. There was a back and forth collaboration the whole time until we got sign-off on what the system will look like. And then only did we go into the building phase. And we also approached this with a milestone. We didn't just take a whole project and say, okay, everyone run in your direction and make it happen. We said to them, let's prioritize it. Let's start here, let's build it, let's get everyone comfortable, let's move on to the next one. And this is critical with any Salesforce implementation you do. You can't approach it as a big thing and just have everyone do their own thing. You need to have a focused, designed approach. EXA always uses the example of tangential and core activities. So this is absolutely key when you're doing a decommissioning of a system and bringing in Salesforce. So a core activity, when you think of it in your business, is something that you actually don't have to worry about, okay? And a tangential is something you need to think about doing. Core can happen in the background without you knowing it and contributing to your business. Tangential, you need to be thinking about it, remembering to do it. So when you replace a system, it's absolutely crucial to not only replace it, but look for enhancements. And that was what we focused on in the architecture of this project the whole time, to say, okay, so this system can do X, Y, and Z. We can replicate this in Salesforce and in CPQ, but how are we going to improve it? What can we actually take away that they were currently doing and maybe speed up the process? We also achieved this with so many integrations to their other systems. And Exa's development team, I must say, has been absolutely astounding in talking to the other dev teams at Absa, and that extensive collaboration to get the systems talking so that, again, as Mo's mentioned, that you can get all the information in one system. So you don't have to log in and log out to see the customer's detail, log back in to see their profile, log out to see their account information. You've got everything on one screen in front of you, and it's fast. We now, or after we did the milestones, we went into a QA. I said now, because we're actually now going into UAT. So we went into a QA where we got some of the strongest testers within Absa to test and vet the system. So they were given user stories that were written with us as a development team from the developer side and from business. And what they did is they checked every single thing that we built against the user stories. It was actually so nerve-wracking to me at a point. They had this big, colorful spreadsheet. And some simple things like, can a user log into the system? Of course they can log in, but it had me so stressed. I'm like, oh my word, what if it went red? Mm-hmm. So at every single simple step, we went through QA. And Mark, actually, who we work very close with, one of our senior developers, made the joke to say, if anything goes wrong on this project, we'll probably land up on carte blanche. So QA was absolutely important to us at this point. UAT is now the first stage where we actually introduce the system to the bankers. So this is where we get down and dirty, get them to test the system. People are used to Salesforce, who work on Salesforce every day, now need to see, are they happy with the product we've produced? Okay? And the last stage will then be going to production to make this live. So when we initially started working with Absa, we said to them, this is a 2-year project, at least, because of the risks that we have and the complexity of the integrations and the processes. So back and forth communication during the POC times, we cut some of the not so necessary pieces to say, okay, if we cut this piece and we do it this way rather, can we save some time? And I'm very proud to say, so far, we are in to go live in December, which means it's a record time of 9 months for a system to be implemented at Absa. But by no means do you use that as a benchmark when you do CPQ. So 9 months, I'm very proud of the work my team is doing there. And yeah, all CPQ and Absa collaboration at this point.
Yeah, no, I think it was a massive feat for us to try get in the functionality and the enhancements we managed to get into the system in the very short space of time that we had. It was a massive undertaking, but I think how we can attribute or what we can attribute to that success is the fact that from the onset, business went from having this idea of what we want and how we want it to be delivered, sometimes very blue sky. And after many robust engagements with Exa, the team at Exa, I think we then were very clear in terms of what is it we're going to try achieve, what is it that we're going to focus on, what is absolutely critical for us to land, what is very important for us to enhance on in order for this process to work seamlessly. And that was agreed at the onset. And I think
yes.
that it was quite important. And some of the insights that came in from Exa in terms of have you thought about maybe doing it a bit differently to how you initially thought and bring in that best practice, which we wouldn't necessarily always had a lens into, really did go a long way towards making it in that 9 months time frame. that we were able to achieve. So yeah, yeah, I think it was a great collaborative project between the two of us. It got tense at some points.
Absolutely.
But we were able to find each other in the end, and deliver what is now going to be our new pricing platform, which we believe is going to deliver immense value to our frontline colleagues. As I mentioned, we currently have the swivel chair action that we're eliminating. And not only that, there's a backlog that is yay long on further enhancements that we would like to bring in. And that over the next couple of months, we will then plan on how do we then deliver on the additional enhancements that we would like to bring in.
Thank you. And then just to add on to this, very often our customers ask us after a big implementation like this, and you touched on it now as well, once we've reached this go live, what then? What happens to this partnership between EXA and ABSA, or EXA and whatever company? So by no means do we pack up our things and leave. We actually, throughout this whole process, work closely with their development team so that they can learn the ins and outs of what we did and how we did it, so that they're able to run and maintain the system on their own. And furthermore, we also have a program where we use your resources to upskill them to learn their system. So from the get-go, that they're able to be useful to you and to this build. So you don't always need to rely on us, but that we're almost just there to guide them through the first few bits, and then they can actually maintain this themselves. So we at EXA pride ourselves in the upskilling part of all of our builds, to not just implement and run, but to actually grow with your company and get the resources to the point where this is self-maintained within your company. We have a few minutes, so I'm happy to open it up for some Q&As if you'd like, if there are any questions. I've got my great team here, so technical questions, I'm going to just
Just understanding the level of pricing that you implemented, did you do any client negotiated pricing at the moment?
At ABSA, would you like to answer that?
Yes, we do. Given that we are a relationship bank, there's a lot of bespoke, not only products, but also pricing that we offer to our clients. And I think having CPQ on Salesforce, which is the front end that houses all the client information, really makes that process of determining, whether we are willing to get into a price negotiation or not, that much easier, because all the considerations that would be required sit on Salesforce. So as opposed to now leaving Salesforce and go looking for that information elsewhere, it's all housed in one place. So then that process can be a lot quicker than what it used to be.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? There at the back. Go for it.
When you were considering your CPQ structure and how you implemented it, what were the changes that you suggested, and what motivated those change suggestions when implementing?
Maintenance. I can answer that straight up. So CPQ is quite, little asterisks, T's and C's apply, flexible in the way you can handle your product structures and your configurations. But when we designed it and we got the ABSA governance model of how they currently structure everything, we kept on going back and looking deeper into it to say, okay, it's great to have it done this way, but if we do it this way, can it be maintained easily with the integrations or user intervention in the future? So should something need to change overnight and they want to see that update in the system tomorrow, how does that look? If it changes during the course of the day and the bankers need to see that live and updated change, how does that look? So that was our main focus, is the maintenance of the structures. Okay. I see we're out of time. Just want to point you to a very good session to attend as well. It's the Revenue Cloud Subscription Management, and it will be at 3:10 by our very own Mark Hoban from Salesforce. So if you're keen on Salesforce CPQ, this is a definite one to go and listen to as well. Okay, thank you.